In the quiet village of Umudike, there was a woman named Ihuoma who never smiled, never cried, and never spoke much. She lived in a lonely hut at the far end of the village, close to the thick forests. But that was not why people feared her. They believed that Ihuoma collected the eyes of the dead. No one knew why, but every time someone died, their eyes would vanish before the burial. At night, strange lights flickered in her hut, and villagers whispered, afraid of what she might be doing inside. The elders warned children never to go near Ihoma's hut. They said she had made a deal with spirits and that her hut was filled with jars of staring lifeless eyes. Some villagers swore they had seen glowing eyes watching them from the darkness of her home, but no one had proof. No one had dared to look inside. The only thing they knew was that when a person died, their eye sockets became empty, and Ihoma always disappeared on those nights. It was enough to make everyone stay far away from her. One night, a boy named Obina sat outside his father's hut, listening to the grown-ups whisper about Ihoma. He was curious. What did she do with the eyes? Did she really steal them? Or was it just a scary story? His friend Chigozie nudged him and whispered, let's find out. Obina's heart pounded. He knew it was dangerous, but the mystery pulled at him like a strong wind. He glanced at the dark path leading to Ihoma's hut. It was late, but the moon was bright. If they were careful, they could follow her in secret. Obina and Chigozie waited until the village was asleep. The night was silent except for the chirping of crickets. They crept through the shadows, their bare feet barely making a sound on the dirt path. As they got closer to Ihoma's hut, they saw a dim light glowing from inside. Then they froze. A tall figure moved in from front of the hut. It was Ihoma. She was carrying something wrapped in a cloth. She looked around as if checking for watchful eyes, then slipped into the forest. The boys exchanged glances. They had to follow her. Step by step, they trailed her into the deep forest. The trees looked like giants, their leaves whispering secrets in the wind. Ihoma walked quickly, never looking back. Obina and Chigozie had to run quietly to keep up. Then she stopped. The boys hid behind a tree, peeking from the side. Ihoma knelt beside a large rock covered in strange carvings. She unwrapped the cloth she carried, and two human eyes rolled onto the ground. The boys gasped, their hearts racing. What was she doing? And why was she offering eyes to a rock? Ihoma raised her hands and began a chant in a low, airy voice. The ground beneath the rock trembled slightly. Obina felt a chill run down his spine. Then something moved. A crack appeared on the rock, and a thin mist hissed out like steam. The boys wanted to run, but their legs felt like they were stuck in the earth. They watched in horror as the mist took the shape of a face with empty eye sockets. A deep, raspy voice spoke from the mist. Have you brought what I seek? Ihoma nodded. The misty face floated above the rock, its mouth opening and closing as if tasting the air. More, it whispered. I need more eyes. Ihoma picked up the two eyes and placed them inside the crack in the rock. A faint glow pulsed from within. Then the face let out a soft sigh, as if relieved. The ground stopped trembling. Ihoma stood up and turned to leave. Obina and Chigozie ducked behind the tree, holding their breath. What had they just seen? And what was Ihoma feeding? They knew one thing for sure. This was no ordinary woman. The boys ran all the way back to the village, not stopping until they reached Obina's hut. They sat, panting and staring at each other. Did you see that? Chigozie whispered. She's feeding something. Something evil. Obina swallowed hard. We have to tell the elders, he said. But would the elders believe them? Grown-ups always said that children imagined things. Still, they had to try. If Ihuoma was giving eyes to some creature in the forest, then their village was in great danger. They decided to go to the oldest man in the village, Elder Okoro. Elder Okoro was over 80 years old and knew the village's deepest secrets. The boys knocked on his door, and after a moment he stepped out, rubbing his eyes. "What are you doing here so late?" he asked. Obina and Chigozie told him everything about the missing eyes, Ihuoma's secret trip to the forest, and the mystic creature inside the rock. Elder Okoro listened without interrupting, his face growing serious. When they finished, he let out a long breath. "You have seen something that was not meant to be seen," he said, "and now she will know." Obina and Chigozie felt ice in their veins. "Who will know?" Chigozie whispered. Elder Okoro's eyes darkened. Ihuoma is not just a woman. She is the keeper of the sightless spirits. The spirit was once a great seer, but he was cursed to wander blindly between life and death. He must steal the eyes of the dead to see again, even if just for a moment. Obina's stomach churned. "Then she is helping him?" Elder Okoro nodded. "And if she finds out you were watching, boys, she will come for you next." A cold wind blew through the village. The boys shivered, glancing at the dark path leading back to their huts. "What do we do?" Obina asked. Elder Okoro's voice was grim. "You must leave this village at sunrise. Go to the next town, stay with your relatives. If she does not find you, perhaps she will not suspect what you saw." But Chigozie shook his head. "No, we can't just run. We have to stop her." Elder Okoro sighed. "You are brave, but if you try to stop her, you must be ready for what comes next." As dawn approached, Obina and Chigozie made a decision. They would stop Ihuoma. They had to protect their village, even if it meant facing her alone. Elder Okoro handed them a small pouch of white powder. "This is ashes from the sacred tree," he said. "The spirit cannot stand it. If you throw it at him, he will retreat, but it will only last a short time. Use it wisely." Obina took the pouch and nodded. The sun began to rise, and they knew tonight would be the night of their greatest battle. As the sun set, Obina and Chigozie hid near Ihuoma's hut, waiting. Their hands trembled as they held the sacred ash Elder Okoro had given them. The night was silent, too silent. Then they saw her. Ihuoma stepped out, carrying a cloth bundle. They knew what was inside, the eyes of the newly dead. She moved swiftly towards the forest, her black robe flowing behind her. Obina took a deep breath. "This is it," he whispered. They had to stop her before she fed the spirit again. If they failed, the village might be lost forever. They followed her deep into the dark woods, the trees towering over them like silent giants. Ihuoma walked fast, as if the night itself was pulling her forward. The boys had to be careful. One wrong step and she would hear them. Then she stopped. They ducked behind a large tree, peering through the leaves. The strange rock with carvings stood before her, waiting. She unwrapped the cloth, revealing two fresh bloodied eyes. The boys felt sick. Ihuoma lifted the eyes, ready to place them into the rock's hungry mouth. Before she could drop the eyes, Obina leaped out. throwing the sacred ash directly at the rock. The ground shook violently. The misty spirit let out an inhuman shriek, its hollow face twisting in pain. Ihuoma gasped, stumbling backward. "Who dares?" she hissed. Chigozie grabbed a stick, waving it at her. "We know the truth," he shouted. "We won't let you do this anymore." Ihuoma's eyes darkened with rage. "You foolish boys," she whispered. "You do not know what you have done." A harsh wind howled through the forest, and then everything went silent. The ground split open, and long shadowy hands erupted from the crack, reaching for the boys. Obinna barely jumped back in time. The misty spirit screamed, its form growing larger as if fought against the sacred ash. "The eyes! Give me the eyes!" it wailed. Ihuoma turned to Obinna, her face twisted in fury. "You should have stayed away," she spat. She raised her hands and suddenly the torches around them blew out. The night swallowed them in complete darkness. Chigozie panicked. "We have to run." But Obinna stood his ground. "No, we finish this now." He grabbed another handful of ash and threw it at Ihuoma. She shrieked as the powder burned her skin. The spirit roared, its body flickering like smoke caught in the wind. Ihuoma staggered, holding her face. "You do not understand," she hissed. "Without me, there is no one to control it. You will doom us all." Obinna hesitated. What if she was telling the truth? But it was too late. The spirit had broken free now. A deep growl shook the forest. The misty spirit expanded, stretching towards the village. "I am free," it whispered, its voice a thousand echoes. Ihuoma collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. The spirit was no longer bound by her ritual. It was hungry and looking for more than just dead eyes. It wanted the eyes of the living. Obinna and Chigozie turned and ran as fast as they could. Behind them, the air rippled and the spirit began its hunt. They burst into the village, shouting, "Wake up! Wake up!" Doors flew open, confused faces peeking out. "What is it?" Elder Okoro stepped forward, his face filled with worry. "The spirit is coming," Obinna gasped. The trees trembled as a cold mist spread through the village. Then the first scream came, from a man whose eyes were pulled from his skull by invincible hands. The village erupted in chaos. Women grabbed their children, men reached for weapons, but nothing could touch the spirits. Elder Okoro moved quickly. "Gather everyone in the shrine." The villagers rushed towards the center of the village, but the spirit moved faster. It snatched the eyes of two more men before they could reach safety. "It's too powerful," someone cried. Obinna's hands trembled. This was all his fault. If he had let Ihuoma continue her rituals, would the spirit have stayed locked away? The thought haunted him, but there was no time for regrets. They had to fight back. Ihuoma staggered into the village, wounded but alive. The villagers gasped when they saw her. "You did this!" a woman screamed, but Ihuoma ignored them. She pointed at Obinna and Chigozie. "You released it. Now you must help me bind it again." Obinna clenched his fists. "How?" he demanded. Ihuoma pulled a small knife from her robes. "A small sacrifice must be made, a new one," she whispered. "A living person must give up their eyes willingly." The village fell silent. No one wanted to be the one to lose their sight forever. The spirit grew stronger, its misty form expanding over the village. More screams filled the air. "If we do nothing, we will all be blind," Ihuoma warned. The villagers trembled, afraid. Then Obinna stepped forward. "Take mine," he said. Gasps echoed through the crowd. "No, Obinna!" Chigozie grabbed his arm, eyes wide with fear. There has to be another way, but Obinna knew this was his responsibility. He had freed the spirit, now he had to stop it. Ihuoma's expression softened. "You are brave," she said. She took his hands gently. "This will hurt." Obinna nodded, his heart beat loud in his ears. He closed his eyes as she lifted the knife. The villagers watched in horror, but just as the blade touched his eyelids, a deafening roar shook the sky. The spirit froze. Something was wrong. The mist shivered. The ground cracked. It was afraid. The spirit was not looking at Ihuoma anymore. It was looking at Chigozie. Chigozie stepped forward, his eyes glowing. "What is happening?" Obinna gasped. Chigozie's voice echoed, layered with something ancient. "I remember now," he whispered. The spirit trembled, shrinking back. "He is the one," Ihuoma said in awe. "The lost seer." The villagers stared. Chigozie lifted his hand and the mist screamed, its form twisting in pain. "I was never meant to be a normal boy," Chigozie whispered. "I was part of the curse, but now I can end it." Chigozie stepped forward, his eyes burning with golden light. He chanted words from an ancient language, and the spirit wailed, trying to escape. "You do not belong here," he declared. "Return to the darkness." The mist swelled violently, and in a final agonizing shriek, it collapsed into nothing. The wind stilled, the night became silent. The spirit was gone. The villagers watched in awe. Chigozie fell to his knees, exhausted. Ihuoma bowed her head. "It is finished," she said. The village rejoiced, but things were never the same. Chigozie's eyes never returned to normal. He could see things no one else could, the past and the future blending in his mind. Ihuoma disappeared after that night, never to be seen again. Obinna and Chigozie grew up, forever remembered as the boys who defeated the spirit. But even years later, when the wind whispered through the trees, Obinna sometimes felt a pair of unseen eyes watching him, a reminder that the dead still see. Days passed and the village slowly returned to normal. The villagers repaired their homes and the dead were given proper burials. But whispers of that night never faded. People still feared the shadows beyond the trees, and some swore they could hear a voice crying in the wind. Elder Okoro often sat alone staring at the forest. "The spirit is gone," he would say, "but something still lingers." Obinna and Chigozie knew what he meant. The eyes of the dead had seen too much. The past was watching, waiting. Obinna and Chigozie tried to live normally, but something had changed. Chigozie's glowing eyes never returned to normal, and at night he saw things no one else could. Shadows moved when they shouldn't. Whispers echoed from empty corners. "It is not over," he told Obinna one night. "The spirit left something behind." Obinna shuddered. "What do you mean?" Chigozie's voice was heavy. "It didn't just take eyes. It left a part of itself inside me." He rubbed his forehead, his face filled with fear and confusion. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Chigozie felt a sharp pain in his head. He fell to his knees, clutching his skull. "It's inside me," he gasped. Obinna grabbed his shoulders. "What's wrong?" Chigozie's breathing was ragged. "I can hear its voice. It's whispering to me." Obinna's blood turned cold. "What is it saying?" Chigozie's lips trembled. "It wants more eyes." A powerful gust of wind swept through the village, slamming doors shut. The spirit was not completely gone. Elder Okoro rushed over as villagers gathered in fear. "What is happening?" he demanded. Chigozie struggled to stand. "It's inside my head," he gasped. "I see what he sees." Elder Okoro's face darkened. "Then it left a piece of itself within you," he murmured. "A curse that cannot be undone." The villagers backed away from Chigozie, their eyes filled with fear. "Is he turning into it?" someone whispered. Chigozie's hands trembled. "No," he whispered, "but it knows I am here." The spirit was watching through him. That night, Chigozie couldn't sleep. He sat outside, staring at the sky, his glowing eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Do you hear it now?" Obina asked. Chigozie nodded. "It wants something." Obina swallowed. "What?" Chigozie's voice was hollow. "To see again." Obina felt a chill in his bones. "Whose eyes does it want?" Chigozie turned slowly to him. "Mine." Obina's stomach twisted. "Then we have to stop it. We have to end this for good." Chigozie clenched his fist. "We need to find Ihuoma." They searched for days, but Ihuoma was gone. No one had seen her since the night of the battle. Some said she had vanished into the forest, while others believed the spirit took her with it. "We need her help," Obina insisted. "She's the only one who understands this." Elder Okoro sighed. "If she is alive, she does not want to be found." Chigozie's eyes flashed. "Then we must do this ourselves." Obina's heart pounded. "How?" Chigozie's voice was firm. "We return to the stone and we find the truth." The boys ventured into the forest, their torches flickering against the trees. The stone was still there, but something was different. The carvings were deeper and the air was colder. "It's waiting," Chigozie whispered. He placed his palm on the stone and suddenly the world shifted. Obina gasped as a vision flooded his mind. He saw Ihuoma kneeling before the spirit, weeping. "What are you?" she asked. The spirit's voice was a whisper. "I am the memory of the forgotten. I see what others wish to forget." Then the vision shattered. Obina and Chigozie stumbled back, gasping for breath. "It doesn't want eyes," Chigozie murmured. "It wants memories." The boys looked at each other. "That means," Obina stared. Chigozie nodded. "It feeds on people's past, on things they try to erase." Obina's head spun. "Then why take eyes?" Chigozie's face grew grim. "Because the eyes hold the truth. When people die, their secrets go with them, but their eyes remember everything." The spirit was not just hungry, it was searching for something lost. A rustling in the trees made them spin around. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Ihuoma. She looked weaker. Her once strong presence faded. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Chigozie stepped forward. "We need answers." Ihuoma sighed. "It is too late." Obina said, "Why?" "Because the spirit has already chosen." Ihuoma's lips trembled. Chigozie's chest tightened. "Chosen what?" "A new host." Obina's breath caught. "Who?" Ihuoma turned to Chigozie. "You." Chigozie staggered back. "No." He clenched his fist. "I won't let it take me." Ihuoma shook her head. "It already has. The night you destroyed it, a piece of it entered you. That's why you hear its voice. That's why you see things." Obina's voice shook. Then how do we stop it? Ihuoma's gaze was heavy. You must choose. Either you let it consume you completely or destroy it from within. Chigozie's breath became shaky. And how do I do that? Ihuoma's expressions darkened. You must give up the one thing it wants most. Chigozie froze. My eyes? Ihuoma nodded. Only by removing them will it lose its power. Without sight, it cannot live inside you. Obina's heart pounded. There has to be another way. Ihuoma looked at Chigozie. If you don't act, it will take your mind. You will no longer be you. Chigozie's hands shook. He had to fight so hard to defeat the spirit. Now he had to make the greatest sacrifice of all. I will do it, he whispered. Obina grabbed his arm. No, we will find another way. But time was running out. Chigozie lifted the sacred knife and took a deep breath. Promise me, he told Obina, that you will remember me as I was. Tears filled Obina's eyes. I promise. Chigozie pressed the blade against his eyelids. The spirit shrieked in fury. The air cracked as a powerful force tore itself from Chigozie's body. A dark mist swelled above them, writhing in agony. Then it vanished. Chigozie collapsed, his eyes shut forever. The night was silent and the battle was finally over. Obina held his friend as the first light of dawn touched the trees. Ihuoma bowed her head. It is done. The villagers came running, their faces filled with relief and sorrow. Elder Okoro knelt beside Chigozie, placing a hand on his shoulder. You have saved us all. Chigozie's voice was weak. Can I still see? Obina squeezed his hand. You see more than any of us. The village had lost one set of eyes, but gained a new kind of sight. Years later, Chigozie became the village's greatest seer, guiding his people through visions only he could feel. Obina remained by his side, ensuring his friend's sacrifice was never forgotten. The spirit never returned, and the legend of the woman who collected the eyes of the dead faded into history. But sometimes when the wind howled through the trees, a whisper could be heard, I see you. And deep in the forest, where the old stone lay, two glowing eyes watched silently, forever holding the memories of the past. Thank you so much for watching. If you got to this point, please give this video a thumbs up. It will help grow my small YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed yet to my YouTube channel, do well to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you get notified when I post more interesting content like this. Leave a comment in this comment section. Let me know your thoughts about this story. And if you haven't gone through my page to watch other of my videos and interesting stories, do well to go through my channel. I have more interesting stories as well. See you guys in my next video. Bye.